Do you know what time it is? It's supernatural story time. And if you're easily scared, and even if you're not, there's only one thing left to do. Just turn off the lights, because these are stories that you listen to only in the dark. In the absence of light. I wouldn't have been in this mess in the first place if it weren't for fat donut pie. Fat donut pie. If you've never had the pleasure or misfortune of eating one, it's a food abomination, comprised of whatever pastries your drunk ass can get your hands on at 4 a.m. at the nearest gas station. The separate ingredients are then mushed together on a plate and microwaved until the jelly filling scalds the roof of your mouth. It is either delicious or horrific depending on how little drunk you cares about your arteries by 4 a.m. Because I was up foraging for supplies, I was awake to take a phone call. Hello? I hope I have the right number. She'd been crying, the lady on the other end of the phone line. Depends on who you're looking for, I guess. The archivist? I once again regretted the embarrassing moniker I'd given myself. Speaking. What can I do for you? This is stupid. He gave me your number, but I don't think... This was wrong of me. I'm sorry to waste your time. Wait. Look, I answered your call at 4 a.m. Clearly, I've got nothing better going on. Why don't you at least tell me why you called? There was a long silence. I let it hang. It's my son, she said, voice rougher than before. He's been attacked. Ma'am, have you called emergency services? I don't have... No! In his room! In his locked room. And he says whoever did it, what, he... I waited, she was hiccuping. He said they didn't have a face. And that's how I found myself in West Virginia 2 days later, looking up at a grand old house that would break me in ways I couldn't yet understand. Of course, the family didn't live in that house. There was another much more recently built place toward the front of the property. A low-slung bungalow, entirely at odds with a gorgeous plantation-style home rotting away in the back of the lot. There was evidence of ongoing construction all over. Piles of scrap wood under fading tarps. The vines tangling the leaning sides told the story of the land fighting to reclaim the materials the house was built with and winning. The bungalow was in good shape. Probably that's where the owners were living in the delusion that the second home was a temporary solution while they spruced up the first. I imagine the realtor's advertisement included the phrases, handyman's dream and needs a little TLC. A scrap of notebook paper covered the doorbell, informing visitors that it was non-functional. I didn't have high hopes for their grand renovation plans if a simple doorbell had defeated them. The haggard woman in her late 30s who answered my knock did a double take on seeing me. Yes? We spoke on the phone, ma'am, regarding your son. Oh. Clearly, I didn't match the image she built up in her head. She might have pictured Van Helsing. Instead, she got someone who resembled a kindergarten teacher or the quirky aunt. My looks are either a help or a hindrance. People are quicker to trust me because I appear non-threatening. On the other hand, when you need help protecting your family from the boogeyman, you kind of want someone with a little threat to them. Her eyes landed on the rugged duffel bag at my side, bulging with supplies. Oh, she repeated, I suppose you'd better come in. She sat me down in a cramped living room stuffed with oversized furniture. The kind of furnishings you'd find in a much larger home like the plantation house. These people really were hopelessly optimistic. There was a boy of maybe 6 kneeling in front of the coffee table and doodling. He didn't acknowledge me or his mother, even as she ruffled his hair. Susan, by the way, she said and then stalled. Susan, it's all right to be nervous. I'm a stranger in your home, a home that, as I understand it, has recently been intruded on by something that's got you and your son scared for your safety. Here, I'll get my notepad and you can start from the beginning, whenever you feel ready. It started a few months ago. There was nothing out of the ordinary before that. Things started going missing. We thought, my husband and I thought, that we were just overworked and getting forgetful. But one night John, that's my husband, Got up for a glass of water in the middle of the night and saw the front door open. Dylan. She nodded towards the boy, engrossed in his scribbles. Dylan was out standing on the lawn. He'd been sleepwalking. That's when we set up the camera in the front hall. It was Dylan moving things around. We kept the doors locked after that, but he'd always undo them. We were worried he'd wander off and get hurt. That's when John had the idea of installing a deadbolt at the top of the front door, out of reach. It worked for a few nights. You can see him in the video just standing and facing the door with his eyes closed for hours. One morning we woke up and Dylan wasn't in the house. The lock was still in place. It hadn't been touched. Dylan was only on the front porch of the house out back, thank God. But we still don't know how he got there. You have to understand, I love my son. I'd die to protect him, but things were getting out of control. She stood abruptly and showed me down the hall. I am not a bad parent, she said defensively as I examined the bolt on the outside of the boy's bedroom door. Aren't you worried there'd be a hazard in a fire or something? Of course I'm worried. I'm worried sick. But I don't know what there is to do about it. He still gets out. I was about at my wit's end when the nightmare started. Not me, my husband. He dreams about fire in the old house. It's been in his family for generations, and as far as we know, there's never been a fire there, but he dreams about it every night. We've been fighting because of it, because of the lock and the fear of fire. And then the attack happened. Susan hustled back to the living room and squatted down so she was eye level with her son. Dylan, honey, I'm going to show the lady your owie, okay? She waited patiently for a response, but he continued to ignore anything that wasn't Crayola and paper. Gently, she reached out and rolled up his sleeve. Nearly his entire bicep was wrapped in an angry-looking burn. It took a few moments and a closer examination to figure out it was shaped like a human hand, like someone had grabbed him and their skin had burned an impression there. Painful looking, but the kid never flinched. Susan tenderly rolled down his sleeve again and looked to me in agitation. The doctor said it looked like an intense sunburn. He had no idea what to make of the shape, but two police officers came down to the ER and talked to my husband and I, throwing around unfounded accusations. If I weren't desperate, I wouldn't have called you. Susan stopped to slow down and breathe, practically vibrating with anxiety. Deep purple shadows like bruises underscored the fear in her eyes. No offense, she amended, a beat too late. None taken. I flipped my notebook closed. May I assume it was the morgue guy who gave you my number? Possibly. I was a little frazzled at the time. Doug has seen his share of weird with me. Way back when I was first starting out, he'd pointedly transferred out east to get away from the mystic Nevada desert. Like that would work. I made a mental note to drop by and see how he was coping. Susan, I'm going to get some equipment from my bag now. It's going to give me a better idea of what exactly is happening here. I may be able to narrow it down, but you need to know it might take a few days to solve. If it's even solvable. I can't just waltz in waving smudge sticks and magically fix everything, but I will do my best to make your home a safe place again. I'll need a few minutes of silence for this one. As far as aesthetics went, my homemade infrasound detector was a box of ugly. However, it did actually work under the not strictly necessary LEDs I soldered on for presentation and intimidation purposes. Soon I had the answer to the first of about 100 of my questions. Nothing out of the normal range. This ruled out a bioacoustic reaction causing false paranormal sightings. I left it running in the corner just in case it picked up something later on. I ran through the whole usual checklist and got nothing. Nada, zip. I honestly had no idea what was going on. Susan watched my face cycle through various emotions, ending with puzzled. I'll need some time to analyze these results, I lied, buying myself some time. Can you email me the videos of your son sleepwalking? I'd also like to speak to your husband about his experiences and then run through these same tests at the house and back. John will be back late tonight. He's been petitioning the local chapter of the Historical Society to get the family home declared a piece of historical importance. Otherwise, the city is going to make us tear it down. It's not safe in there. But John won't let it go. It's the last tie to his family name. You know, it's been months, but he's not having much luck. One more thing to argue about. Her mouth twisted like she was tasting something sour. First, I need to ask, would you feel safer in a hotel tonight? I can stay here, maybe figure this out in one go if... Susan held a hand up to stop me. No. I'm sorry, but we've only just met. I don't want a stranger sleeping in my house, especially without any supervision. Not that I think you're a criminal, but... She trailed off, shrugging. The kindergarten teacher look apparently wasn't quite enough to cut through her concerns. No, I get it. It's fine. You have my number, so please call any time. If you feel threatened, you listen to your gut and get out of the house, okay? Just drive and call me from the road. I'll be in town looking up some things while I wait. My husband is the person to talk if you want to know the history of the land. I'm sure he'll talk your ear off. Susan had unwound considerably now that there was a plan in place. I gave her my card in case she'd erase my number from her call history. Dylan never looked up from his drawing, and I made second mental note to look through them later. Children who've been through trauma are often reluctant to talk about it, but sometimes work through it in other ways. I should know. I stopped for lunch at a sandwich place, both to review my notes and because I knew I wouldn't want to eat anything after visiting Doug. Susan had been quick to send me the videos. Running them through some filters would clarify things, I hoped. The hospital was very lax with their security. A confidence stride and a clipboard can get you almost anywhere without being stopped. Try it sometime. Doug was not as happy to see me as I had hoped he would be. No, 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 no. Hey, you're the one that got me involved in the first place, so don't act like it's not got nothing to do with you. I passed on your phone number discreetly. That's it. You are not going to drag me back into the shit. The shit is already here, and it's already been happening. You can't blame every supernatural thing on me, Doug. I just want to know 2 things, and then you don't ever have to see me again. Deal? Doug hesitated, his face bearing that classic deer in the headlights look. I guess he wasn't coping so well after all. Just tell me if you think she's full of it. Tell me if you think she's making it up. Munchausen by proxy or whatever. And then tell me what you think about the burn on the kid's arm. That's who I'm here to help. I'm here to help the kid. Doug did a quick sweep around the room with his eyes, looking for what I didn't know. The burn is real. Definitely real. I don't think she made it. Her hands are too small. And the parents sound really convincing when the police were talking to them. I overheard it all. That's why I told her to call you. But the burn, it's... Doug rubbed a hand over his tired face. I worried I was pushing him too hard. Not a thermal burn. Not like the kind you get from touching a hot stove. Radiation burn, very mild. I've only seen it a few times, but I'm sure. Thank you. You can thank me by never coming back here. Look, it's not like I'm ungrateful for what you did for me in Nevada. It's just that bad luck and trouble follow me wherever I go. I get it, Doug. Don't worry. I won't be back. In my motel room, I went through the footage Susan had sent me to my laptop. There were several copies of each clip with different settings altered because I wasn't quite sure what I was looking for. I sure found it, though. The smudge on screen was so faint I wasn't sure I was imagining it at first. It grew more pronounced as the dates on the playback went by. A spiky shadow and vaguely human form. An emaciated human, maybe. All joints and jutting bones. It was clearest on the nights with a dead-bolted door. The nights poor Dylan stood for hours staring. Only it wasn't Dylan doing it. The shadow had a hand on his arm, a real firm grip propping the kid up. Sometimes it would grab Dylan's head and turn it like the thing was making him look around. I couldn't get any clear features off the video. An attacker without a face. I needed to see Dylan's drawings. It was past 9 when Susan called me. and invited me over for a late dinner. Her husband had only just gotten home. It wasn't the most awkward meal I'd ever had, but it was up there on the list. Susan oscillated between fretting and putting on a show of playing gracious hostess. Dylan focused on nothing but the food in front of him, which he downed voraciously. He'd clearly inherited his father's single-mindedness. All John could talk about was the history of the land we were sitting on and the house out back. He went into excruciating detail on each sale of the land as it was parceled up and sold through the years. What keeping the house meant, not only to him but to the town as part of their history. He didn't seem to spare a thought for his family, or the ordeal they were clearly going through. John was disconnected from everything that wasn't the house. The house. The house. I wasn't sure if he knew why I was really there as long as he got someone to talk at. My attention kept wandering to Dylan. After what felt like an eternal history lecture, the meal ended and Susan put her son to bed. I interrupted John's stream of consciousness to ask him about his dreams of fire, but he waved off my inquiries. There's never been a fire. Not once in the entire history of the property. But perhaps it's my anxieties manifesting themselves. The house is set to be destroyed by the city next year, if I can't get it under the protection of the Historical Society. They may even have it in their budget to complete some restorations. I can't wait until the old place is restored to full dignity. It's all that's left of my family name, besides myself and Dylan, of course, last of the line. Tiring of the topic of conversation, I jumped on the opportunity to review Dylan's drawings. He was an astoundingly good artist for someone his age. Monster trucks and ninjas, his family dinosaurs. Usual kid stuff, but they looked more like they'd been done by a high schooler than a 6-year-old. Pretty sure at that age I was still drawing potato people with sticks for arms. He'd drawn the houses too. The one he lived in and the one he kept wandering towards. The old house was rendered in great detail. Not as it was now, but as it might have been. The collapsing porch leveled, the holes in the roof gone. It really was a nice place. He'd also drawn one and only one image of the shadow. Red and black crayon pressed hard into the paper, faceless and featureless, like a burned man. And had kept that one in the locked kitchen drawer and handled it like it was contagious, or like it would escape. I told the couple that I'd like to run some tests in the old house. John protested, saying the place wasn't currently structurally sound. Appealing to his ego, I asked that he show me where it was safe to step and swore I'd stick to those spots. It wasn't hard to imagine the old house's former glory once inside. Quite easy to cast imagination back in time and picture the way it used to be. Sadly, it was currently a dump. 3 stories tall of rotten ruin. I set up shop in what had been the parlor. The gamut of tests all returned the same results as the house. I set up the infrasound detector and settled in for a wait. I'm not sure when I fell asleep. The sheet-draped chase lounge was a lot more comfortable than it looked. The creaking of floorboards woke me like a splash of cold water to the face. I pricked my ears in the darkness and waited with held breath. The dim moonlight through the windows revealed Dylan's outline slowly stepping through the front hall. If I hadn't seen the video earlier, I might have tried to wake him up and return him home. Now I watched. I needed to know what the shadow was up to. It took the boy upstairs, step by a natural step. His head never turned to look at me as I followed from what I thought was a safe distance. Up, 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 all the way to the attic, through the attic, out the attic window. From outside, I heard a shrill scream pierce the night. Susan and John screamed Dylan's name. I was almost too late to grab him. I almost missed. Less than a minute later, Susan and John tore through the attic door to see us sitting on the floor. Dylan was crying and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. There was a lot of yelling and questioning and sobbing all around. As soon as I could extract myself from the situation, I went back downstairs and packed up. Once again in my room, I took a shower and passed out. The adrenaline had ebbed away, leaving me utterly wiped. I kept seeing myself fail. Kept seeing Dylan's leg dangling over the edge. Kept seeing the raw panic of Susan and John's faces down on the lawn below. It was a mercy I didn't dream. When I woke that afternoon, I knew what I had to do. Susan had emailed me saying she and Dylan were staying with their mother for the time being. For a second night in a row, I entered the plantation house laden with tools. Different tools this time. The smell of gas made me cough, but I kept splashing it liberally on every floor. I had to be thorough. John confronted me in the front hall on my way out. I wasn't expecting that. Stupidly, I assumed he was staying with his family. "What the hell is this?" Listen to me very carefully. "Shut the fuck up! Get out of my house!" "No. Tell me what the hell it is you think you're doing." I backed away from him ever so slowly. He couldn't see the shadow looming over his shoulder. "John, listen to me. What would happen if Dylan had died? What would you do?" "Are you threatening my son? Is that why you came here to do? Threaten my family and burn down our house?" "Shut up and think for a minute. What does the spirit want? The thing that's been tormenting your household. It wants Dylan dead. Why? Why does it want that? What happens if Dylan dies? Think, goddammit. Tell me what you do." I could see the gears turning in his head. "You'd throw yourself into restoring this place, to keep it protected, because it's the last thing in your family name. You'd make sure it was never destroyed. So, you have to understand why I'm doing this. You can't, you have to choose. You have to choose right now. Your family's past or your family's future." Hang on. There was something in that thought. Past or future, past or... That's when I was lifted into the air and slammed back down. It wasn't John. He was still standing there gaping. The shadow was in the room, more solid than ever before. I could see it so clearly that... Up, down, pain. I coughed involuntarily. My ribs felt shattered. Felt like I was breaking apart. "You have to... Up, down, down, down. Through the floor." I'd never known pain like that. Pain where pain is the only thing that exists. Everything tunneled down to a single point of agony. It took so long for me to come back to myself, to be aware of my body on the basement floor. My mouth buzzed with an electric fuzziness. I couldn't move. Paralyzed, I thought. Paralyzed and dying. I thought, you are going to die here in this hole. Dead. Not my voice, not John's voice. Dead, it repeated. Who are you, I thought. Where did you come from? What do you want? Dead. Dead. Dead world. Raspy wheezing I finally interpreted as laughter. Dead world. The sound was a saw ripping through the back of my brain. I had to get out of there. I had to get away from the voice. That voice in absolute darkness. Light, orange and yellow. John had made his choice and I was going to die there because of it. Because I'd been trying to do the right thing. Idiot. Slowly, agonizingly, I rolled onto my side. Then my belly. Not paralyzed. In the light of the flames, through the hole above me, I saw the basement stairs had been gutted. No way out. The voice was still laughing. Your world will be ash. Your world will die. Dead. Like you. Fuck you, I thought. More reflex than anything. Another set of stairs. Cellar stairs leading to outside. They might have been locked at the top or covered in the piles of construction debris. I did what I always did. I did what I had to. Inching across cold stone, my back already roasting in the heat. I couldn't make my hands work. Numb, like I'd been sleeping on them. My whole body was numb and barely responding, like driving with the steering wheel lock on. I reached the stairs. Couldn't make myself get up them. I remembered. Sprawled at the bottom of a different set of stairs a lifetime ago. On my elbows, I dragged myself up a single step. I remembered. The grinding of bone on bone as my nose was shoved back into place. Another step. I remembered. Above our cartoonishly swollen nose, two black eyes staring back at me from the mirror. Another. I remembered a busted up mouth saying, nobody's ever going to lay a hand on me again unless I get in a few good hits myself. One more. I remembered. I don't die here. Darkness. How do you feel? Like shit, obviously. I was in and out of it for days afterwards. Naturally, that meant I was free for Doug to come and pester. Didn't I tell you not to come back to my hospital? You'd miss me too much. Doug snorted. No, he really wouldn't. I was getting better at writing again. Big, blocky letters like a kindergartner, but at least they were legible. My hands still felt like they had useless sausages bolted on the end of them, but at least I could make my fingers move. The doctors weren't sure if the nerve damage was going to be permanent. You're going to tire yourself out. I'll have you know I walked all the way around the 3rd floor by myself yesterday. Well, with a cane, but it still counted. Get some bed rest. Doctor's orders. Uh-uh. I've seen your patients, Doug. No thanks. Susan and John had come to see me. The old house had been completely destroyed. Caved in on the foundations. They had plans to fill the hole and pave over it. Dylan, no longer having to deal with plain Shadow Man puppet, had become much more lively and interactive. His parents were so pleased he was almost back to his former self, and so guilt-ridden about almost getting me killed that they'd made arrangements with the hospital to pay all my bills. I was pretty glad about that, especially because this case hadn't paid a dime otherwise. That's the life, I guess. Is that it then? Doug asked. Is it over? I sighed and finally put my notebook down. It's over for now. For here. Good enough for me. Not good enough for me, though. That attack had felt personal. That message had felt personal. Why bother threatening a dying person? Why taunt them, past or future? That phrase still ran through my head, but I was starting to put it together. One tiny piece of a much larger puzzle, and I was very, very motivated to solve it.